Hey everybody, Adam here with Sports Capitalist, coming at you with what's likely going to be a very short NASCAR video breaking down the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 at Atlanta. Before we get started, you know the drill. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. How's your NASCAR season going so far? Is your favorite driver doing well? How's your fantasy teams going? We would really love to hear from you. Obviously, join the Discord. It's in the link below. We do all kinds of sports, NASCAR. Danger and I just did an NFL video earlier today. That should hopefully be out soon. We do NBA. We got an MLB season coming up. As of this recording, March Madness is just starting. It's already been nuts. Number 2, Kentucky lost. Richmond upset Iowa. I'm watching Arkansas fight for their life against Vermont. So gotta love March college basketball. So, for this race here in Atlanta, again, I think it's going to be a short video because there's a lot of uncertainty, right? We with the new car, there's still teams that are figuring it out, and to kind of touch on the race last week, it was another good race. I think it was a little underwhelming compared to the races we've seen prior, but at Phoenix, it was an entertaining race. Chase Briscoe got his first Cup Series win, so very happy for him, but really put a little too much faith in the Toyotas. Now, I wasn't overweight on the last place fantasy points finisher like I had been the previous 2 weeks. That honor went to Corey LaJoie, but Truex wrecked out. Christopher Bell didn't help matters. It was really all Ford, essentially, Ford and Chevys, and so with some teams still trying to figure it out, and they redid the Atlanta track, so it's looking at previous Atlanta data is almost not going to help at all. The way the track is set up and the way that they're enforcing like the line rules and everything almost seems like it's going to be more like a super speedway race in a Daytona and Talladega. And if you followed our content before, or maybe are just new to fantasy NASCAR in general, you should know that those races are extremely unpredictable. So my advice, first of all, this weekend is to go light. I wouldn't put too much into this race because there's so much uncertainty. It should be a great race, but fantasy wise, there's just so many variables and so many unknowns, between the track and the new car and what we've seen from some of these teams. So I'll still touch on the drivers and touch on overall strategy and how I'm feeling about it. I think practice is going to be a bigger factor this week because, again, we're not sure. But kind of tackling it similar to a super speedway race. And in that, really you're going to kind of want to mix it because in super speedway races, the strategy that we've taken is really going for place differential. And I think you want to do that this week, but you still want to look for a dominator. I think a lot of the times we try and look for 2 or 3, but in this case, I think it's like pick one that you think will have a good shot, because I think there's going to be so many spread out. So pick one and then really just go place differential after that. I think that's and finish, but I think that's going to be your best bet if you are going to play this weekend. Again, I would recommend going light. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't have as much data. I'm kind of following some other guys in the industry that have been doing this longer than I have. I'm mainly looking at Daytona as well as Texas and Kentucky. That seems to be the closest thing that we can get to what this race is going to look like. I didn't look at Talladega too much. So in terms of drivers, it's still going to be similar to, again, how we approach super speedway races. So Fords are the name of the game, and they've been absolutely, I don't know if I want to use the word dominant, but it seems certainly like they have a leg up with this new car so far. Ryan Blaney, I think, is going to be very chalky this weekend. I think regardless of where he starts, if he's a place differential play, he's going to be super chalk. But I think people are still going to take him, even if he starts in sort of a role where he can be a dominator. If he starts on the front row, I really like him. If he's a place differential, I really like him. Starting in the between like 3 and 4 to 10 range is where it gets a little murky, because then you're kind of really banking on dominator upside, and also, where's his potential finish relative to their price. And so just touching on the forwards, that's how I would feel about Blaney. That's how I would feel about Logano. Gonna mention with Team Penske, I'm gonna mention on Austin Cindric again. So he won the Daytona 500. Hasn't really done well in a lot of the other races here, but if this race translates to more like a super speedway, Cindric's, I think, still a good play. So I'll jump back onto that train this week, and if he lets me down again, we'll revisit that. But just with all the uncertainty and everything, I think now, and going to him, I think it'll be interesting to see how people feel about him, because he might actually get an ownership bump because he won the Daytona 500. So maybe fading him because we haven't really seen anything else outside of that, and there's a lot of luck involved in Daytona and Talladega. Maybe fading him in that regard, if you think his ownership is a little too high, is an interesting spot too. The other Fords, so just in terms of pricing, Blaney and Logano, I feel about the same. I like Blaney a little bit more, but again, if they start between like 4 and 10 in terms of qualifying, that's where things get a little murky. Cindric at 9, I think is fine. Maybe you can find some better value there. Moving to Stuart Haas, also Fords, Kevin Harvick, I think, is a solid play. He was my favorite play last week, and he had a top 10 finish again. Had a really good car. I mean, that was a car that had a shot at winning that race, and actually tied the record for most consecutive top 10s at a single track. So Kevin Harvick, 18 consecutive top 10 finishes at Phoenix, which is absolutely nuts. The only other two people that have done that, and I can't remember the tracks off the top of my head, but it was Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt Sr. So very impressive there from Kevin Harvick. So, he's going to be in play for sure. His teammates, Chase Briscoe, just won this last race at Phoenix. Just an absolutely incredible car that he had. Bad day to be underweight on him for sure, but I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. I think, and even on his own team, I think more people were playing Kevin Harvick and Eric Almirola. So, he's 8,300 on FanDuel. I think that's a little bit of a bump. The likelihood that Chase Briscoe wins back-to-back races or even has back-to-back top 5s, honestly, is not great. So maybe consider shying away from Chase Briscoe this week. But again, if he's a place differential play, I think he's still a strong play. Eric Almirola, probably going to be a little chalky at his price at 7,300, although there's another guy I'm glancing at that might change that here. Again, Fords in general, not much more I can say about Eric Almirola. And again, I'm going to keep this kind of short because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty and we don't know, what the track's going to be like and obviously what practice and qualifying are going to bring. But I, at first glance, love Cole Custer's price at 4,500. Again, the main tracks I'm looking at are Daytona, Texas, and Kentucky. The last time we raced at Kentucky, which was back in 2020, Cole Custer won that race. So he's a Ford, seems to be at a super speedway. He's got a win at Kentucky. So really like him. I'm looking at my performance model here in terms of Fords. So up towards the top, Blaney, Logano, and Almirola. It actually likes Almirola better than Harvick. Cindric's up there. Trying to see where, Briscoe is down there. It has Cole Custer pretty low, so even with that win at Kentucky, he must have had some really bad finishes outside of that. And not just finishes, there's other things that go into it, but just in general. It doesn't seem to have the performance to justify it outside of that, but I still think I still really like that price at 4,500. Chevys, historically, not great at super speedways and tracks similar. Kyle Larson, I was underweight on him last week and probably will be again this week. He's obviously a great driver. He's always going to have a great car, but is it going to be a car that justifies his price? Probably not. Does he get the Dominator points? Probably not. So unless he starts crazy in the back, he's probably not going to be worth that price. Similar to last week, I am more interested in Chase Elliott than I am Kyle Larson. Probably going to be under-owned this week, given that I think more people are going to gravitate toward Blaney and Logano. So that could be an interesting tournament play for sure. William Byron and Alex Bowman, no thank you. Not this week. Maybe Bowman. I think Bowman might be a little under-owned, and obviously he's streaky. He's always got upside because he's always somehow a threat to win a race if he hasn't wrecked out already. A late caution and suddenly he steals it. Seems to be his MO, but outside of that scenario playing out, I don't see it. Ross Chastain is one guy that I did want to bring up, and he's only 7,000. So I don't know it's hard for me off the top of my head to gauge what ownership will look like between Eric Almirola and Ross Chastain. If Ross Chastain is a good amount lower owned than Eric Almirola, I think I'd almost rather maybe play him. He's just been so good this season so far, and so I'm a little, his pricing is probably reflective of Chevys at this type of track. I think the pricing and the Vegas lines and everything really kind of match up with what a super speedway race line would look like. So Ross Chastain, actually in my performance model, he's right there with Bubba Wallace, who is a very popular super speedway driver pick in both just Vegas picks and daily fantasy. So you can save some money off of Bubba Wallace and go grab Ross Chastain. I mean, they're right there in my performance model. So I actually kind of like Ross Chastain, and if he's lower owned than Eric, now my model has Almirola higher in terms of performance, but I almost kind of like him as a leverage play if his ownership and is projected to be much lower than Eric Almirola. Austin Dillon, also right there. Really like him. He's had some solid runnings recently. He probably would have finished top 5 at Phoenix if he didn't wreck out on those last 2 laps. So his finish wasn't good, but I mean he was right up in the top 5 there. Let me take a look at his, because I think he had a good finish prior to that, right? So yeah, 21st at Phoenix, but he was running in the top 5 up until the final 2 laps, so he got wrecked out. 11th at, what was that, Vegas? And then finished 2nd at Auto Club. So now those races aren't necessarily translatable to here, but just to say that Austin Dillon's been running really well so far this year. And I think that says a little something with the new car. If some guys are having a little more success than others, I think there's, even if it's not a comparable track, I think that's still something that you should monitor for sure. So I think that's about all I want to say about Chevys at the moment. Toyota's boy, sorry, Tyler Reddick also has been running extremely well. My performance model isn't high on him this week, but he's been having a great season so far as well. So did want to give him shout out, but most of Team Hendrick outside of Chase Elliott, I'm really not interested in. Again, maybe Alex Bowman, and maybe that's a little bit of the fan in me, but obviously I'm wearing the Ryan Blaney hat this week because this is the track type where Ryan Blaney would do well. And he had a really fast car last week at Phoenix too. Didn't get the Dominator points because he got a speeding penalty on pit road at the competition caution, so that just sent him from first place to last place, and that's not a good spot to be in, especially if you're looking for that Dominator upside. So moving to the Toyotas, I mean, they've just been so crazy disappointing this year. Denny Hamlin's been awful. He started in second place last week, and he also got a speeding penalty on pit road at the competition caution, and really just, I think he maybe finished in the top 10, but no, he finished 13th. So he barely sniffed the top 10 up until just the end when everybody else was wrecking out. That was the only reason he was even close to the top 10. He just kind of, I don't know if Hamlin's kind of known to mail it in once something goes wrong, but so I don't know if it's I think it's a mix of that, and also just Toyotas are really struggling with this new car. Truex, I was big on him last week. Didn't have it. I mean, didn't even sniff the top 10, and then just blew a tire and wrecked his car, and that was the end of his day. Christopher Bell, similar deal. I mean, really the only Toyotas that have been relatively consistent throughout the first 4 races of this year have been Kurt Busch and Kyle Busch. That's really been it. Hamlin's been really bad. Truex, not great. Bell has had issues. Bubba Wallace, not great. And if you listen to kind of the radioactive that NASCAR puts out, like you can hear it from the Toyota drivers. They just don't have the confidence in these cars, and they just are really frustrated that they can't seem to figure it out. And at a race like this, which might translate more to a super speedway, that they're probably best to try to avoid. The Toyota driver I probably like the best this week would be Kyle Busch, just because we've seen his success at Texas. So, and I think he'd be an interesting, because his ownership might be kind of in the range of normal, but maybe Kevin Harvick pulls a little bit off of that. So, I'm interested in Kyle Busch this week. Same with Kurt Busch at his price, 7,800. Let me see where my performance model has him. He's not bad. He's right below Ross Chastain, so I'd probably rather play Ross Chastain over him just based on the pricing and all of that. And Kurt Busch, he's been more in survival mode. He hasn't exactly had like the cars that warrant his finishes, but he's avoided the trouble. He hasn't made any stupid moves, and he's avoided the wrecks, and he gets really good finishes. So that's why he's been, I would consider, good in that regard. But even then, it's not like he has this amazing car that's warranting these finishes. It's just he's staying in the field until the end, and he's able to get a good finish out of it. So, and that's smart racing. Kurt Busch has been doing it a while, so that's not surprising from him. But other than that, I mean, Hamlin, Truex, no, not at their prices for sure. I mean, Bubba Wallace maybe a little bit, but I think he'll get an ownership bump because he's Bubba, and it's if people are wise to the idea that it's like a super speedway race, they'll gravitate towards him. But I think I might go a little underweight on him for sure. Not for sure. We'll see what practice brings, but I don't know, just Toyotas are really now starting to concern me. I brought it up a couple weeks ago that, it was something to monitor, but not like look super into because we were so early in the season. And now this many races in that they're effectively still having the same issues. is, I think, very concerning. So just looking at some of these other guys, that's about all I want to say about the Toyotas. Brad Keselowski, I've brought him up in a couple recent videos because I've been saying that, he's, it seemed like he's running okay, and then he runs into some sort of issue that just takes him out of it. He was awful last week, and he has the history at super speedways, but his equipment just isn't up to snuff. So taking his data, there's some skill involved in it, but I mean, he's the different car that he's in this year is just, it's not there. So probably not very interested in Brad Keselowski until further notice. I want to see if there's anybody else I really want to talk up here, but we've just about covered it in terms of the major names. So now kind of looking at value, I don't hate Eric Jones at 5,500. Michael McDowell, he won the Daytona 500 once, and that's been about it. Although he had a good finish at Daytona earlier this year, but still not moving the needle terribly for me. Very interested in Noah Gragson this week at 3,500. Same with Todd Gilliland. Gilliland was very good at Daytona earlier. He's been solid, this year so far. I mean, I think I think in terms of points, he's like there with Denny Hamlin, which is more of a slight on Denny Hamlin than anything. But these and Ty Dillon's been up there too. So Gragson, Gilliland, and Dillon, I think, are definitely worth some exposure. Below that, probably not. Corey LaJoie is a guy that a lot of people gravitate to on super speedway type tracks, but his wheel flew off in this last race, so he's lost a lot of his crew for a suspension. So I actually, if Corey LaJoie is actually projected to get a decent amount of ownership, I'd actually probably shy away from him. I think I'd rather play these three guys in Gragson, Gilliland, and Dillon. Maybe even throw Haley into that category. So very interested in those guys. So and again, those guys will probably qualify towards the back. It's the strategy here is place differential play, and a lot of the times on super speedways you're not using your full salary to get the optimal lineup because it's mainly place differential play. So I certainly think it's worth having some exposure to some of these, I think what would normally be considered punt plays. But I think there is actually some really good value in, grabbing a guy at this low of a price range so that maybe you could double up on a Blaney and a Logano, or, Blaney, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, something like that. I think there's some real value there. So let's throw one together just real quick, just for the fun of it. So I'm going to start with Blaney. I'm going to grab one of these guys down here that we just talked about, just to kind of show the value there. Let's just go with Gragson. I think it's actually pronounced Gregson, but it's spelled Gragson, so I tend to call him that. So what does that leave us here? So starting with Ryan Blaney and then giving Noah Gragson leaves us 11,000 per person. So let's double up and let's go Logano. That still gives us 10,000 per. So with those last two spots, I mean, you could go Kyle Busch and Bubba. And again, I know I just said, don't use the full lineup, but I just want to show the flexibility there. So Kyle Busch and Bubba, or, Kevin Harvick, Austin Cindric. That's actually I think that's a pretty solid lineup. A lot of Fords, so that's essentially all of Team Penske: Blaney, Logano, Cindric, along with Kevin Harvick and Noah Gragson. But even then, I mean, you could make a cheaper lineup, just with some of these other guys. So Blaney, Logano, Ross Chastain, let's throw in Austin Dillon while we're at it. And then you could still afford at that point Tyler Reddick, but you could come still come down and still probably get the optimal lineup, grab Kurt Busch, Eric Almirola. I wouldn't throw Cole Custer into that category, but Austin Cindric would still leave you, $800 on the table. Bubba Wallace, if you still want to buy into the super speedway part of it. Chase Briscoe, if you want to ride the hot hand, if you will. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there and a lot of interesting options on that end of it. So comparatively over on DraftKings, just to take a quick look at their pricing. So it's actually flipped. Blaney is the most expensive on DraftKings and Larson is in second, and I think that's rightfully so. This week I think Blaney should be more expensive than Kyle Larson. So like here, I'm more interested in like a good amount of the time if I had to pick between these two, I'm probably going Chase Elliott over Kyle Larson in this case and saving that $200. Hamlin in this case would definitely be a tournament play. I would not play him in cash at 10-1. Logano comparatively to FanDuel is actually underpriced at 99. So I think he's probably gonna be a little chalky on DraftKings. Kyle Busch still and Kevin Harvick still interested in them at those prices. Probably not Byron or Truex. See if there's any other big discrepancies. Cindric it looks like is a little underpriced compared to FanDuel, so I think that's a good one there. So yeah, like these guys, anything under Gilliland on DraftKings, I'm probably not interested in. But again, you could grab one of these guys for salary relief. Probably Gilliland in this case. I'd rather save the 200 and play him over Gregson. But pricing looks about the same between the two sites. Chastain's a little over. So actually, Chastain is actually a better value on FanDuel this week. So that makes me like him even more on the FanDuel side. But Dylan Wallace is certainly cheaper on DraftKings, but again, I think that'll open you up if you wanted to fade him for some interesting options. So if I wanted to make a lineup here and I wanted to go Blaney, Logano, and then grab Gilliland, still leaves me about 7,900 per. So Dylan, so 8,200 per. So you could go Dylan, Chastain, Cindric, Blaney, Logano, Gilliland, Dylan, Chastain, Cindric. I think that's a great lineup. And again, depends on if there are any place differential plays. But elsewhere, if you wanted to go even cheaper and not use the full amount of money, or maybe even try to upgrade, you could go down to Custer, and you could get anybody you wanted at that point. So just a lot of interesting lineups. Again, I wouldn't go heavy this week. Boy, this video was not shorter by any means, but just kind of wanted to talk through the strategy and everything, and I tend to rant a little bit. So, and obviously wanted to get as much information as we could out there because these videos tend to hit before practice and qualifying are over. So if you liked it, thank you for watching this far. If you've made it, again, like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord below so that you can have access to all of our final rankings and picks and all that kind of stuff. But again, this week in NASCAR might be a better week to go light. So enjoy the race. Good luck to anybody playing. Good luck to your favorite driver. And we will see you all next week. Take care.